5 different locations that the Skatepark site selection committee has identified and graded, and there is no real record being made in the meeting. I mean, if anybody wants to make comments or tell us anything, that's fine, but it's not going to be made an official part of the record, and everybody will be encouraged to come say it again at a select board meeting that's being recorded.
You have to at least come, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rod, only 100 feet up off the bank.
Right.
So we would be talking about that far end of the parking lot, coming up 100 feet off the bank, which brings us about to that co-op permit parking sign, and then we would work about 6,500 square feet in this direction. That would still leave parking for people to utilize this space if they were using it as a skate park, and it wouldn't touch any of the parking on the other side.
And it would take up about half of the parking spots.
Two-thirds. More like two-thirds.
Gotcha.
So all of this parking is gone, but this would be maintained as a parking lot.
Correct.
And these spaces out here
On
that
the
co-op
street side.
uses are still there.
Now, there's been,
There would have to be some kind of fence.
Yeah, some type of decorative. That would all come in the design phase. You know, some type of decorative fencing both here and along, so you wouldn't have.
There'd be like some kind of door or gate that let people get through the
That's what the.
I'm just thinking if you have fence.
Yeah, they would have to be.
There's like some kind, you go in by a gate.
or just a gap in the,
Those are all the signs in there. They can go either way.
there's been discussion about that building coming down. I know that when I was on DRB, there was discussion of that.
PCBs are present both in the wall and the floors and in the basement. And so any subsequent development, if the structure is to remain, we would have to address that. My name is David Longsmith, and I was with the skate park committee a while ago, and I think that this site was really lacking to me. It doesn't have any shade. We've already talked about how the fact that the only bathrooms are ones you would go and borrow from facilities half a mile away from here. This needs to be in a park, in my opinion. It shouldn't be isolated down here with a river and a derelict building and a recovery center and a factory on four sides. It really should be in the context of a park, so people can go there and enjoy it and not feel like they're out in the middle of a barren field doing it. So I'd really like to suggest that the committee can continue to consider the parks more than an empty parking lot. And if you're going to do this parking lot, why limit it to 6,500 feet, especially if it's only going to come down to here? This park should be, it's already been said that 6,500 feet is not it's way smaller than what the typical skate park in this country is built at. And why build a small park if you've got more space? If you're going to build it here, at least make a decent sized skate park.
Is that the youth theater is an abutter to the space. So in terms of creating a real family inclusive core inside.
And the Boys and Girls Club.
And the Boys and Girls Club too. So
those are two successful.
I'll make an argument that we actually have a cluster of family-friendly activities that are coalescing around this area, especially with the youth theater. I understand trying to expand into some of that brownfield space.
And if this was to become more of a park setting, then that would be.
You know, I can certainly see families dropping kids off there, teenagers coming and skate, or younger kids or older kids skating here, parents going shopping at the co-op. I actually think if you think about the whole area cohesively,
The skate park itself was closer to just under 11. But it would be relocating several of these items to other areas within the park. So that structure right there has already moved once. It cannot move again. So when it comes down, it goes to the scrapyard. So it would be replaced. I did want to clarify that. But these two swing sets here, they're fine where they are right now. But once they're taken out, they do need to be replaced as well. It starts from out over here and starting. You have like a narrow, if you want to call it a narrow meandering path going around the trees out beyond to here.
So we're talking about site selection, which means you start construction of the site. So you're not talking about an existing plan for an existing park that's here. So really the only things that should be talked about is whether this site is a good site for the skate park and people's comments on that.
That's an interesting point, Carol, if you want to continue, please.
Okay, so it would narrow down towards in around the trees, around to the back.
And there was some discussion of taking out trees here with the trees that were coming down as part of the design, as originally contemplated anyway.
I could speak to that.
Just briefly, please.
Sure.
I see trees right.
It's really pretty simple. There's a thing called critical root zones, and that's a basic formula for what you need to provide for the root systems to allow the trees to survive. So that spruce tree, according to their last design, would have to be eliminated, and this hickory as well, and these would not fare well.
Were there any problems with the banking?
I don't believe there was anything in that area that was an issue where, drainage was a part of the whole project, as it would be any
But the
project.
bank is pretty stable.
Stabilized.
Because there is a big chunk of money for working on this bank in the capital plan. And I remember being at a special town meeting at Academy School and asked the question if that had been looked at all. And the answer was no, it had not been looked at. So I'm not sure it's been looked at and approved. I think it has not been looked at.
Yeah, we looked at the distance from the top of the bank and it exceeded the angle of repose of the slope.
Is that English? Yeah. Cool.
Won't fall down.
All right.
Okay, so in this area here, what we would be looking at to get a minimum of 6,500 square feet. So we're just going to have to be a little bit of, let's move this a little, let's move that a little. So it could probably be larger than 6,500, but it will fit a minimum of 6,500. We'd meander in and around some of the stuff that's here. Going down by the white perch that's down there, starting over in that area. We'd have to remove the Jeep. Those tires are the original tires.
Yes, they are.
Something you need to keep in mind here, where there's a right-of-way that goes along the bank, along the fence line over into Brookside. So we would take this area through here, rearrange the Jeep, find a new home for it in here. We would have to take the basketball court and change the direction of the court to gain some space there. We may or may not have to move this swing set to another angle. We'd have to wait till we get in here and see what we're working with. But this is what we would be talking about in this general vicinity here.
How about over there?
Past the perch is what the state refers to as the fluvial erosion hazard area. And so, and this whole site's affected by an Act 50 permit, so they have the power of review, and it's unlikely that by introducing that much impervious surface they would meet the state's guidelines for.
But here would?
It's enough of a distance away.
So park 6,500 to 10,000 square feet likely can be sited in here
And outside the fluvial erosion hazard area.
and outside the area.
And then there's the remaining issue of the right of way. So it's just like I said in the memo, it's not impossible, but this particular location introduces at least 3 factors that would add to the complexity of the design and the cost.
The right of way, the bank, the stabilization, and
The buffer area.
It's a considerable cost to do stormwater permitting and the feasibility of figuring out where the lines are.
But it can be done. Where did you say
Can
it
be done.
fits in at the completely?
A lot of people use the park for what it is right now.
Right here.
Very harmonious.
quiet.
Peaceful and quiet.
We play it all day, every
Can you
day.
skateboards going smack, bang,
So
bang,
I think
yee-hoo!
Can I just ask
Right?
you to
And
go
I'm
to
sitting on my
the,
deck here and all that.
site on the other side of the pool?
Move. Yeah, right.
I've got a quick question for everybody here. Show of hands.
You raise my taxes
Who
20%
has
and you're
a
putting this
family
in my
member
front
that
yard.
skateboards? Anybody here have a family member that skateboards?
Yeah, that's a big community.
You want to talk to us about this spot?
Well, as I was saying to a couple people on the way over, as we look at this site, what I need you all to do is just erase everything that you're seeing and put on your visual glasses and say, what if we restructured this? What if we restructured behind the pool area, made it smaller, and then restructure all this stuff and move things in that direction and had your skate park out here?
And it could fit.
It could fit, but the reason we did not look at this area is the costs that it would have to be incurred to the basic group that has absolutely nothing to do with the skate park. You know, bank stabilization and all the stuff Rod says we got to do. It looks like a great location. It is a great location. It's a heavily used location. You know, about 75 kids a day come in here. It's our day camp drop-off. It's our day camp pickup. It's stabilization area for camp every day. So everything, you couldn't just do away with this and say, oh, no problem. This is also a memorial area.
So this is a rerun to some extent on a slightly different location of the permitting issues that we confronted closer to the basketball court facility. I've got a map here showing in orange is the floodway, which is the area of the brook that's devoted to conveying the water and flood conditions. The yellow area on both sides of the brook is the special flood hazard area, and this grey stippled area, as we call it, is what we call a fluvial erosion hazard layer area. And so, more or less from a straight line from that corner there, straight through this parcel to the main road, to Clifford Street, is in the fluvial erosion hazard area. Which is not to say that it's not impossible to develop this into a skate park, but the layer of review is certainly increased. And if you were to take the mapping at face value, it means that if you were to invest a large amount of capital in a structure here, even if it is at grade and below, it stands the risk of actually being eroded in a major flooding event similar to Irene. So a prudent set of questions would be, if you're in possession of a map like this, would you spend $500,000 or more in making improvements in an area of land that is subject, you know, to fluvial erosion hazard, which could mean that it was obliterated? By point of comparison, private property owner on the other side of the Citizens Bridge with the parcel, the bank is on the Whetstone Brook. That's about a $200,000 project for bank stabilization there. To put that in context, you're looking at probably triple the distance of bank stabilization to achieve the same effect here, and then you'd still have to build a skate park on top of it, basically.
The reason that particular property was eligible for federal funding for stream stabilization was because it was genuinely threatening the gentleman's home. We looked at the land back here at the same point in time, and you know, the federal government wasn't going to invest in slope stabilization of that magnitude to preserve parkland.
Did this flood during Irene? In here?
No, but there was a dramatic change in the profile.
I know there was a dramatic change in the,
but
you know,
no,
but this did not.
This is not inundated, and it didn't suffer from an erosion of the bank.
Seems like where we're standing now is just as close to the bank as when you were standing over
It
there.
actually is closer over there.
And so, do we have to do the same degree of work over there?
You would have to impose a minimum of a 50-foot and possibly more likely a 100-foot buffer, and you'd still be in this corner here is where you're going to be, you know,
challenged by a buffer. Here, as you go through this area here, there's a sort of a grade change in the parcel. There's another parcel down the bottom. I also want to say that roughly along, just on the other side of that fence, is where the right-of-way is.
So
Hugs the tree line all the way around to
Other
where we
side of the
were
fence.
to the other
Just the
other side of this fence. Yeah.
So Rod, are we assuming that? I mean, or is
Assuming
it-
what?
Are we assuming that we have to that is what the state is going to ask us to do, or should we ask the state?
Adam's got more background with asking rather than receiving. So yeah.
Ask for forgiveness instead.
I don't know.
So my view of the site is really positive. The top of the bank is just on the other side of those sheds, so it is tight, and it would be a negotiation with the state. The way I would approach it would be a feasibility study in which you have to do a conceptual design, and then you go and talk to the FEH is actually cuts across further the pool house and the sidewalk. So this is all FEH, the fluvial erosion hazard area. And so there's a negotiation with the state to determine whether they would accept, to your point, there's a discussion to be had.
Right.
For that discussion to be had, there has to be a certain amount of investment in design, and because remember we also have to do the stormwater treatment as well.
But again, we're assuming on the stormwater that no other areas in the park have been changed.
You're going to have to get a stormwater.
No, I know that. But
the 5,000 square foot, I know that there's areas that have been added here, and a 5,000 square foot skate park is really ineffective. You know, it's really just not. It's not the right thing to do.
65
also, if you're gonna,
Well, that was
John.
65 was down to 10.
Right.
It was down because we raised the money.
Can
at the time, right?
I speak, please? If you're going to go into negotiations with the Rivers Division, the River Management Section, about using the fluvial erosion hazard area, they're going to require, it's going to be a concession that they require stormwater treatment. You just don't go into a flood zone and add impervious surface. I have a different view of the erosion than Rod had with the erosion over here. That was precipitated by the construction of the bridge. That didn't happen until I put that bridge in and increased velocity. That changed the dynamics of the river. This bank here is a lot lower, and it has already gone through Irene. So I feel like you could practically build a skate park in this area with proper setbacks and buffers and provide stormwater treatment. The challenge, and this goes back to this idea of choosing a skate park, is that you have to have money to do it, and it's unknown. So I would fully get on board with this location if I had a belief that the select board was willing to put up some dough or help the skate park committee. When Dora mentioned the previous plans and other things invested in the other site, I just have to disagree that Coal Lot has a level of investment and research and design that totals in the $50,000 range. So you're starting negative $50,000 when you're starting here. That can be overcome, but it has to be overcome with support. You know, the skate park selection committee and the basic committee doesn't feel like they have a lot of value or have a lot of validity. So if you can do that,
we're trying to get to that.
I totally support this site.
Why is this site better than, I'm sorry, but why is this site better than over on the other side?
Well, that, as I said over there, you have the buffer. It's narrower between the wetland and the top of the bank and the right-of-way, and it's closer to neighbors.
It's closer.
This area has some wider areas. You know, with a skateboard, it's nice to have meandering paths, but you also want some room to spread out. You know, so you can have people crossing and real features. You know, there's some skate park features that require width, and I think you could achieve it here. But again, it takes some work.
You know, because we have about a half a dozen senior events here a year, and having that accessibility is important. Do I think we can kind of push things over like that? I do think we can do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
it's going to take some money to come up with a design and the appropriate design, and I think it could be good for the park. But I think the one reason that really pushed the committee away from this was the money that was going to have to be added to the cost of the project.
Okay.
Last site for the day. Who can talk to us about this
I can
site?
do this one too. Come on up here. Go step up on my throne. Again, this area, you're basically looking, you got the road over there, this area here. This is kind of an area that's not heavily utilized. It's used a lot. As you can see, anytime we rent this, the Quanah shelter, which is every single weekend. We have 4 rentals on a weekend. Several times during the week. There's just not enough parking up there, so overflow parking works its way down here. But you're really talking about this bowl type setting through here. This is a great site. It's great, you know, we got the area to do it with. The difficulty, it's out of the beaten path, which I'm sure is great. There's no neighbors around, we don't have to worry about that. But it's not something that's desirable, my personal opinion, it's not something that's desirable to have a skate park
This far away.
this far away.
So isolated.
So,
When we decided this before, I thought it was down there, behind the Memorial Garden.
that is an area that got eliminated.
Oh, okay.
That got eliminated in the process. That it didn't make it to the top 4. This was one of the top 4.
Okay.
Because we didn't go on all 10 that made it. We just looked at the top 4 sites, and the select board chose to look at that other site that we just looked at. So this is one of the top 4 sites here.
Is there a lot of site work that would be needed here? I mean, it's a little bit sloped.
In any project, there's going to be, you know, a fair amount of site work that's got to go on.
But we're not talking about any fluvial erosion or...
No, I haven't had a lot of flooding up here, no.
Yeah, run the water down the hill.
Yeah. There is some discussion on the other side over there. We've been having a lot of chat about, you know, dog park area, and so we're talking about an area on the other side of the road that would be utilized possibly as a skate park, as a dog park. A dog park.
You already have a dog park down by the swing.
We have a lot of dog parks. That's not the only one we have.
Dogs parking and dog park are not the same thing.
Not the same thing?
So, there you go.
Yeah, the bathroom's down the bottom.
There's a bathroom up at the shelter. It's open from basically mid-May until mid-October. And then, you know, at the bottom, so you're kind of halfway in the middle, maybe not quite halfway in the middle, but you got to either truck down or truck up.
Do the police come this far up? Do they do their...
Sometimes.
They will.
Sometimes, yeah.
What's the acreage up here? This spot, how big is the acreage?
This particular area here, yeah, you could get, yeah, you could definitely get your 6,500 in a lot more.
Could you get even bigger?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yeah.
12,000?
Well, for all of you that came on and visited all these parks, a few of them dropped off, but I wonder if once the select board and the town officials leave, if you might want to stand around for a while and talk about what you've seen and see if there's some possibility for a consensus that you could bring forward, since we heard a lot of conversation off to the side in the course of going to these places. And if it continues to be that disharmonious, it's just going to make it way harder. So I'm just asking you to consider talking to each other.
I just wanted to, on a related note, I just wanted to say one thing that as a part of my work on the site selection committee, I stopped random skateboarders on Flat Street and wherever I saw them, and I asked them about their opinion of where a skate park should be, and unanimously the response I got was, as long as we can get there. Right. That's where we want to go.
Yeah, I would say that my grandson was talking about the different ways that he could get himself to each of these different sites and how he would go on his bike, and you know that's important for the younger folks that don't drive.
My name's Christian Avard. I lived on Spruce Street for a long time, now living in Dummerston, but I got a kid here who is dying to skateboard. I just wanted to say that we've been to Chester, Springfield, Fitchburg, Ludlow, we've been to West Lebanon, we've been to Manchester, we've been to Rye, New Hampshire, and I can't tell you how much we've spent in terms of money on gas, just so we could have a skate park. That's how much skateboarding means to my 2 kids, and I can't tell you how much the kids want this skate park, and my son up here wants it really bad.
This is the one who gave his birthday party money to as his own donation to the skate park. Okay, that's the man right there.
Last one, Melissa.
I'd just like to point out, in my opinion, I think that this particular site at the park is just too far removed from civilization. You know, little Johnny falls and gets hurt and no one's, you know, he's just skating with him and his buddy. There's nobody here to see. It's, you know, you could have some kid getting bullied. Nobody would know. I just think it's unsafe.
I agree.
I'll be here tomorrow. That's how much we're...
Well, and we need more parents that will come with their kids, but unfortunately, parents don't always do that, and so it needs to be a safe location.
And you also need to consider that how this facility is used in the other seasons. Not so much the spring and in the fall, but in the winter.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
We have a lot of skiers and sledders right down through there.